All right. Good morning. My name's Ksantikara. I'm, a guest to the Saturday class. I'm not usually here on Saturdays, but on, I don't know, like on close to all the other days of the week, I am here. I'm the chair of the North London Buddhist Centre. And actually, about now is the start of my third year being the chair here, so I've been here for 2 years. And this year, 2026, at the North London Buddhist Centre, and in fact at Triratna Buddhist Centres across the globe, there's a year-long theme. We're embarking on a year-long theme. Each of you have hopefully got a little slip of paper. And there's these 4 talks. These are the themes for the year. A method of personal development, a vision of human existence, the nucleus of a new society, a blueprint for a new world. Right. So these are the titles of 4 lectures given at Brighton Pavilion. People seen Brighton Pavilion? The one with the kind of domes, almost Taj Mahal-esque on a small scale. So they're sometimes called the Brighton Lectures, which I quite like. They're given in 1976, and I think there's something about calling them the Brighton Lectures that makes them sound sort of like they were a big deal for the world, rather than the, I don't know, probably 50 or so people that were there. Sort of the Brighton Lectures from 1976. And they're given by Urgyen Sangharakshita, the founder of our tradition, who throughout this talk I'll probably end up calling Bhante accidentally. So Bhante is a word like affectionate towards a teacher. So I'll probably say Bhante, but I'll try and say Sangharakshita if I remember, but I usually don't. So at this point, in 1976, Triratna, the Buddhist movement that the North London Buddhist Centre is part of, is about 8 years old, something like that. It's quite new, and I think my sense is it's quite exciting. Hopefully there's a bit of excitement still. I certainly get excited by it, but back then it's really being formed, and Buddhism, along with probably generally religions that aren't Christianity, still quite new to the UK. So this is the 50th anniversary of these 4 talks, and as a collection of 4 lectures, they're entitled Buddhism for Today and Tomorrow. And then we're going to explore them 50 years on. So we're going to explore that here on Saturdays. We're going to explore it on many of our festival days. There will be special events, retreats, etc. And what's really good about these 4 things as a theme is like they sort of they encapsulate everything. It's like the theme's Buddhism for the year, a method of personal development, a vision of human existence, the nucleus of a new society, a blueprint for a new world. So there's lots to explore over a year. And what I'm going to try and do this morning in sort of 40 minutes or less is say something brief about each of those 4 themes that we're going to explore as a set. So I'll say something brief about each of the lectures. Bear in mind they're each about an hour long. I'm going to give them 4 minutes-ish, maybe 5. And then I'm going to particularly talk about a poem that Sangharakshita wrote a few years previous, which in more symbolic, poetic language explores the same themes. And I want to say something about those. I quite like poetry and symbols personally. Okay, so firstly, a vision of human existence. So in the lecture series, this is the second talk, but it helped me to talk about it first. A vision of human existence. Everything starts with a vision. I think that's true generally, but it's certainly true of the Buddhist tradition. Firstly, vision, then transformation. In the original talk, A Vision of Human Existence, Bhante particularly outlines the wheel and the spiral and moving from wrong view to right view. I thought I'd say something very brief about the wheel and the spiral. Perhaps some of you have seen it. If you haven't, on your way out, you can see we have a wheel of life where we leave our shoes out here. An image of sort of human life, kind of sadly. It's not a great image. It's very helpful, but it's got hungry ghosts on it and people burning in a hell realm and animals and there's these gods at the top that look like they're having a great time, but They've forgotten impermanence, so they're doomed. But it's like a very helpful image for our mind. It's said to be a mirror. It's like looking in a mirror, and you can see something of the inner workings of your mind. And at the very center of the wheel of life is greed, hatred, and delusion. And each wheel is sort of driving each other. So it sort of spins. And Yama, the Lord of Death, is very kindly holding it firm for us to stop it spinning so that we can see what's going on. So it's an image of a cycle, a wheel, the life that just goes round and round, the habits that just happen over and over again, sort of lack of awareness, lack of love, just spinning, cyclical, a wheel. So in this talk, A Vision of Human Existence, Bhante goes into some detail about that wheel, and then just as much detail, thankfully, about the spiral. So you have this spinning wheel that you're sort of stuck on, this cyclic existence. But then with the right kind of effort, tuning into the right kind of mental states, sort of flavors, atmospheres, that spinning stops being a cycle that's two-dimensional and stuck and becomes a spiral that spins upwards. Beautiful image. I could give a whole talk on it, but this is like meant to be 4 minutes or less. And so that's the vision of human existence given in this talk in particular, that there's a wheel, but once you know you're on the wheel, you can learn how to step off it and spiral metaphorically upwards. Yeah, we can either stagnate or we can grow. We can continue to revolve passively in our lives, helplessly on a wheel, or we can climb the ladder. We can grow like a plant upwards. We can blossom. Our fate is in our own hands. One of the ways that I was talking about this on a course recently is in terms of the samsaric and the nirvanic trend to life. So often we talk about samsara and nirvana in the Buddhist tradition, and they sound like places. Often you'll hear someone say, so we're in samsara, but the Buddha is in nirvana. So it's like, you got a plane there. In reality, there's a trend to existence in our minds, all of us right now, that has a samsaric flavour and a nirvanic flavour. And we all probably tune into a bit of each. I imagine most of us are more on the samsaric flavour, slightly more reactive, less aware than we could be, etc. But every now and again you have that sort of nirvanic trend, the trend of openness, expansion, creativity, connection, beauty. And the Buddhist tradition is just trying to give tips for shifting from that samsaric trend into the nirvanic trend, so that eventually you are just the nirvanic sort of trend or stream. And to do that, to moment lean into and make something of the nirvanic trend, you need a method of personal development. So yeah, in the original series, this is the first talk, a method of personal development. To develop means to unfold, like a flower, stage by stage, petal by petal, seed to bud, bud to leaf. It's a lovely kind of image of unfolding. And this kind of unfolding, this kind of development can be seen as a principle of life. That's what life does. It sort of develops, unfolds. In the original talk, and also particularly in the early years of our movement in Triratna, there was quite a lot of talk of this sort of metaphor of the higher evolution. In fact, people had these badges, like you can sometimes see it, old photos of old, well, they're old now, but young order members then, with these orange badges with a Buddha. It says, the higher evolution. This real sort of 70s vibe. Like, yeah, we know about the higher evolution. Yeah, I've got a badge. I really like them. Maybe we should bring them back. And it's poetic. Yeah, it's a poetic vision of evolution. So we have been born as humans. Golly, how did that happen? Not going to go into that. What do we do now? We've inherited this consciousness that's different to other types of consciousness. It's different to the consciousness of, I want to say rabbit, because I saw a man on the tube with a rabbit yesterday, which is unusual, but yeah, it's a different kind of consciousness. And then what do we do with that consciousness? We've inherited this process of evolution, and it's made us self-reflective, able to organise, think, write, dream, paint, etc. And Bhante in this talk talks about then going on a kind of process of continuing that evolution into something of a higher, even higher state of consciousness. Yeah, and to do that we need a method of personal development. Somewhat uniquely, or somewhat, not entirely uniquely, but definitely puts quite an emphasis on it. Our tradition puts quite an emphasis on indirect methods of personal development. That's particularly the language that Bhante uses, indirect methods. The arts, friendship, a good book, teamwork, getting out into nature, has an effect on our consciousness and can be seen as methods of personal development. What's mainly talked about in this original talk 50 years ago is the direct method of meditation. In the talk, Bhante particularly talks about the mindfulness of breathing and the metta bhavana, the two practices we teach here at the North London Buddhist Centre. The mindfulness of breathing, a practice of the breath, the body, cultivating awareness, integration. The metta bhavana, imaginative, about connection, developing compassion, friendliness, love. So he particularly talks about how crucial they are for personal development. If we're going to step off a wheel into a spiral, we're going to need awareness, we're going to need kindness. And then he particularly talks about the four dhyanas, so these four states of absorption. And I really like the way that he talks about the four dhyanas. More traditionally, you often get these images of the Buddha talking about these different kind of metaphors of water and this sort of deepening of consciousness as you meditate. I'm often conscious of, I don't know which metaphor you like best. Some people it's a bit more like the deepening, sort of downwards, the belly. Some people it's more heightening, the expansive, the heavens. Yeah? It doesn't matter really. But these four traditional states of absorption, the dhyanas. And in the talk, Bhante says he wants to talk about them in terms of integration, inspiration, permeation, and radiation, which I really like, partly because they're easy to remember, rather than, is soap and water the first, and is the man getting in the lake with the silk the fourth? They're good metaphors, but I quite like these. They're the more traditional metaphors. So, Bhante sort of says, I've got this idea about the dhyanas, and the first one being integration, when the conscious mind and the unconscious mind starts to be brought together. And then that brings with it a feeling of absorption, of steadiness, of calm, of pleasure. Yeah, you've probably experienced something of that if you've been meditating. You may not think you have, but I bet you have. Yeah, bet you have. Something of the conscious and the unconscious kind of coming together, this feeling of integration. So he calls that first one integration. The second one he talks about in terms of inspiration and says it's almost like being visited by higher energies, a bit like how you get a kind of poet's muse. So the first one, integration, you've had this coming together of mind, and it's as if there's this muse, this energy that emerges or descends, inspiration. The third, permeation, the soaking into one's being of those first two. So like just a deeper soaking of the integration and the inspiration, it sort of goes in more, soaks in. I was thinking of this when reading the lecture, that it's a bit like the muse that doesn't depart. So in the first two, there's a blending together of the integration and a sort of muse, a higher energy and inspiration. In this third stage, you've gone deeper in meditation, it's permeated, and it feels like it won't depart. And then the fourth dhyana he talks about in terms of radiation, a powerful state of positivity and protection, sort of radiated outwards. Great image. So in a way, in the original talk, in terms of this method of personal development, that's the main thing that's talked about, is you've got to work in meditation so that you're experiencing integration, inspiration, permeation, and radiation. So at some point at this year, someone will have to say more about that. I've sort of in some ways got the easier job. So the third of the lectures, the nucleus of a new society. The nucleus of a new society. So in this sort of image, we think of the North London Buddhist Centre not as a club or an association or a group, but as a spiritual community. That's the image, yeah? The nucleus of a new society. So here at the North London Buddhist Centre and other places like it across the world, trying not to be a club, not a group, not something you can sort of pay to be a member of or do the right thing and then you're in. It's trying to be a spiritual community. Now the reality is, it's trying to be a spiritual community, and more often, using sort of true Atna language, it's more often a positive group. So it's still got that group-like behaviour, but hopefully it's a positive group, meaning at least it's pointing beyond itself often enough. So in a true sense, the spiritual community is a free association of true individuals. It's quite a high bar, and I don't quite have time to unpack the teaching on individuality, but it's pretty close to enlightenment. That would be the proper spiritual community, is, you know, we're all enlightened and we've decided to spend our Saturday together just because we straightforwardly want to. That would be the ideal, yeah? That's the ideal. In reality, that's probably not what's happening right now. But hopefully there's a sense of something positive, and hopefully there's enough of a sense of it pointing beyond. Like, the point of the Saturday class is not just to come to the Saturday class forever and then be liked by the other people that come forever. Yeah, it sort of at least points beyond itself into something more. I.e., we sit around a shrine is one way to try and make sure that's happening. We're not just staring at each other or something. There's something other, something beyond. Difficult to talk about. It needs to have enough shared value and shared practices to hold it together. But ultimately, it's a group of individuals with a capital I. That's the vision. So that's something of the nucleus of a new society. Or what's talked about in that talk originally. So the other thing, of course, is the word nucleus. Nucleus is the core of an atom, the centre of a cell, according to Google Gemini. Any biologists, we don't need detail. And nucleus is the core of an atom, the centre of a cell, something of the powerhouse, the control centre. So this got me thinking about, this isn't so much in the original talk, but got me thinking about the importance of commitment and communication. And I thought you need commitment and communication, both with a capital C, to be a nucleus in this way. A nucleus of a new society. The engine room of the new society, a Buddha land, a world that lives on the values of awareness and kindness, and a new society that's moving away from being a society stuck on the wheel and instead is a community of the spiral. It needs commitment and communication with a capital C. It needs a bunch of people committed to living out an ideal, a vision of human existence, and engaging in deep communication. There's a talk I really enjoyed from Sadhanandi a few years ago on a retreat I was on, where she was talking about the need for existential communication, and that a Sangha, a spiritual community, a Buddhist centre, should have existential communication at its core. So I was both like, yeah, and like, oh no, someone just asked me about the weather. But it needs this sort of existential communication, proper, important stuff. And the Buddhist tradition is all about that, communication, this communication with a capital C. The Buddhist tradition is the passing on of an alive, vital truth or path or lineage through the ages. It's got to be vital, it's got to be alive, it's got to be about communication, not just a subject, not just a book that you read. It's got to have that kind of aliveness of communication with a capital C. That's sort of what makes it a nucleus, I think, in this metaphor, and this sense of commitment. Friendship, of course, as the Buddha said to his attendant Ananda, is the whole of the spiritual life. Okay, this is quite a whistle-stop introduction. So then a blueprint for a new world. So we've already started talking about it. I've been trying to sort of evoke this sense of a nucleus of commitment and communication. And then that creates something of a blueprint for a new world. So we don't just need to change ourselves. We need to change the system. Yeah, and that's true in the 1970s, as far as I can tell. Sort of fits, doesn't it? Change the system. Sorry for those of you that were there. And it's true, but it's true now. But really, we don't change the system, and we don't change ourselves. We have to do both. Can't just do one or the other. We have to work on ourselves, and we have to work on the world around us. And to do that, we need as supportive a culture and supportive conditions as possible. In a way, we need to change the system that we're actually living in. So in a way, right now, we're living in this world. This is our world right now, isn't it? Like, I'm aware that there is a world through the windows, but only just. For me right now, this is the world. And I think that's an important metaphor. Quite often out of this sort of desire to change the world, you sort of get your elbows out to barge past everyone, like right here. It's like, get out of my way, I'm going to change the world. It's like, oh, sorry, this is the world. This is the world I'm in. This is my world. This is what I can change, and hopefully it expands when we go outside. We start to be part of that, etc. But I think what I'm getting at is that we've got to remember that the world is here, not abstractly over there. And that's the world that we're trying to alter, to change, to make a difference in our own individual ways. So in the early days, another thing that was being talked about, particularly at this time, 50 years ago, when these lectures were being given, were the 3 C's. The 3 C's. Communities, co-ops and centres. Communities, co-ops and centres. Living together, working together, practicing together. So in that way, creating a world to exist in, of which everyone's welcome to join, and it affects the world, but it's sort of creating a world where there's communities, people living together, co-ops, cooperative businesses, people working together, and centres, sort of sense of practicing together. In fact, often in the early days, centres, like the North London Buddhist Centre, was talked about more in terms of where you'd spend your social and cultural life. Maybe that's what we do. You'd sort of want to be there in your free time, I think, is the image. You might be involved in living in a community, you might be working at a co-op, and you sort of want to be at a centre. To an extent, some of that's still alive. I've spent many years living in communities, so I spent 8 or 9 years. I spent my 20s, basically, 21 till 30, living in Buddhist communities, 2 different ones, quite large, 14 people a time. Really very, very good though. Crikey, to live around people sharing these values and ideals I believed in, but also tough, worth doing if you get an opportunity. I haven't worked in a co-op. I've spent quite a bit of time now working full-time at a Buddhist centre. I now live with my girlfriend Julia down the road. So I think there's something of this. This is one of the things that I think 50 years on, what is this actually getting at? I don't think it's really like, it's super important to live in a community or to set up a co-op. If you fancy quitting your job and trying to set up a Buddhist business, well, let's talk. Do let me know. It might be able to happen. Or if you want to start a community around here, let me know. I'd probably be able to help some way. But I think in reality, we need to kind of try and get at what the idea behind those were, if you see what I mean. They were just like a helpful condition for how can we spend more time together? How can we really get to know one another? How can we be seen more deeply? How can we find someone to talk about our meditation with? Because it's this, where do I begin? Because there was this redness and how do you get to the point where you can actually talk to someone about that? And it requires overlap, as much overlap as possible. So we don't have to all live together, we don't have to work together, we don't have to set up businesses, etc. We can if we want. But I think the real question is how in 2026 can we spend more time with one another? How can we overlap more? How can we get to know one another? What projects could we work on together? Okay, so that's the a little bit about these 4 lectures. Each one is dense and exciting and has lots of images and teachings in it. So I've only managed to say a few things, and some of them are my own reflections. But I really encourage you to listen to these 4 original talks: a method of personal development, a vision of human existence, the nucleus of this new society, a blueprint for a new world. And yeah, we'll be exploring them all year. But what I want to talk about now is the poem, The 4 Gifts. So maybe I should give a kind of don't worry. I'm not like launching into a whole new talk. I'm just going back and exploring them. They're the same things. They're the same 4, but done through images and symbol. So I'll read the poem in a moment. I know you've got it in front of you. But yeah, so this poem is written in 1973 by Sangharakshita. So it's 3 years before the Brighton lectures. It's 3 years before these 4 talks of Buddhism for today and tomorrow. And one thing I was thinking about that is I think vision is often like that. An image or a feeling or an emotion comes first, and the working out of it into words, perhaps a lecture series, comes later. I don't know if you've had that experience, but I certainly have. There's something of a emotion or a feeling or a connection, and then later on I'm able to explain it to myself or put it into words. I'm not the kind of person to write a poem, but maybe you are. And maybe you found yourself writing a poem about something that's been knocking around, and then later on you write 4 lectures on it. I don't know. Anyway, but I think there's something there about vision is often like that. It sort of comes first and the working out of it comes later. So the point of writing this poem, Triratna, our Buddhist movement, is even newer. It's 5 or 6 years old. And Bhante Sangharakshita decides to go on a 6-month sabbatical, and he's leaving, therefore, his quite young, in terms of they haven't been around very long. They've sort of been Buddhists for 5 years, maybe. They're now in charge. And they're mainly in charge of Pundarika, which was just down the road. I wrote down the name of the street, in case anyone lives there. Balmore Street in Archway. Oh, it's going to be good if someone's like, I was born there. Balmore Street in Archway, so it's just up here, about 40-minute walk. And it's in an old piano factory called Pundarika. Well, it's an old piano factory, and then it's renamed Pundarika. It's our first true Buddhist centre in our tradition. So he sort of leaves them to it. And I think it's as if he's trusting them with these 4 gifts. It's like, okay, there's been 5-6 years of trying to get something going from scratch. And I think you've got enough of a sense of these 4 gifts or these 4 areas of what we're trying to do. Good luck. See you in 6 months. I quite like that atmosphere. It's one of the things I quite like about Bhante's life story, is possibly because it's just different to how I behave. When I'm doing a project, it's like mine. And don't ruin it. I mean, join in. Do you know what I mean? Like that vibe of, okay, yeah, you do the class. Oh, no. Do you know what I mean? Whereas this is like, oh, okay, it's been 5 years. I'm off to Devon for 6 months. Even though this movement is only just starting. Good luck. Really like that sort of atmosphere. I find it sort of inspiring. So yeah, I'll read the poem and then just say a few things about it. I come to you with 4 gifts. The first gift is a lotus flower. Do you understand? My second gift is a golden net. Can you recognize it? My third gift is a shepherd's round dance. Do your feet know how to dance? My fourth gift is a garden planted in a wilderness. Could you work there? I come to you with 4 gifts. Dare you accept them? Yeah, so a short poem exploring the four areas that we've looked at already. A method of personal development being something of this lotus flower, a vision for human existence, this golden net, the nucleus of a new society, a shepherd's round dance, interesting one, and a blueprint for a new world, a garden planted in a wilderness. So I just wanted to say something about each of those images, and then we'll probably be out of time. Okay, so the first gift is a lotus flower. The lotus, of course, is a much used image in the Buddhist tradition. Lotuses grow from the mud. They need the nutrients of the mud at the very bottom of the pond or the lake. And from that mud, from that dirt, from that grit, they emerge through the water into the sunlight. Yeah, like lotuses, we have that kind of potential. And like lotuses, some of us are muddier than others, grittier, really in the mud. Yeah, like this. But we can all grow upwards towards the sunlight through the water like a lotus. That's the sort of image. The potential for growth and enlightenment is in us all, or perhaps in all life, but there's this image of also being in the mud and working with that, coming up into the sunlight. I think this has this image, I was talking earlier of samsara and nirvana, and the samsaric trend to life is passive. If you just sort of let life go, it will have more of a samsaric trend. Whereas nirvanic trend, to grow, to become more aware, kinder, more expansive, more wise, requires activity, a bit like this lotus coming out of the water. It will require something of faith, that there is water up, there is sunlight up there above the water. It's got something of that kind of faith. Yeah, so this is talking in terms of a method of personal development. That's the image. The first gift is a lotus flower. Do you understand? It's interesting also this, do you understand? I think this is pointing towards something of, do you understand this is all about evolution? It's important. It's crucial. It's not just nice. It's not just about calming down. So then we come to my second gift is a golden net. So immediately when I was reading this over the last few days, I was thinking of this, line or phrase that we often say, which is that the Dharma is caught, not taught. So the Dharma, the teaching of the Buddha, the truth, the way to enlightenment is caught, not taught. One of the main ways that you could try and help someone catch it is by teaching it, don't get me wrong. Let's not write off my last 30 minutes. But in reality, it's sort of catchable. If we do a quiz in a month, what did Ksantikara say? Maybe one of you will know. But more when I think about talks or films or music, it's like I remember a bit of a feeling, or I caught something. Yeah, I think that's the image, caught, not taught. And of course, a net is something that catches. If you're using it, of course, then when I think of nets like that, I think of fishing, and it's a bit of a grim metaphor, because it's like murdering a load of fish, but it's also dragging them up. There's this sort of dragging upwards, again, into the light. It doesn't quite work because the fish don't want to be there. But the movement of the image is quite good, I think. I think the other image of the golden net is that the Dharma, the Buddha's teaching, hangs together. It's all weaved together. A bit like when you see a fisherman's net, it's all these squares that are like weaved together. I'm thinking of the film also A Knight's Tale, where the hero in the end goes back to find his blind father who's mending a fishing net. Nobody? Okay. He's mending the fishing net and sort of fixing all of the squares into a net. And just like that, the Buddha's teaching hangs together, sort of all fits. I think it can be really satisfying when someone starts to notice that. I remember when my mum was doing a 6-week Introduction to Buddhism course, she famously turned up at the Cambridge Buddhist Centre and said, "I'm doing this course to find out if my son is joining a cult." Later on, I talked to the person that led it, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I remember her." In the end, she was quite into it. She sort of spent the first few days sort of saying, I remember the first few weeks she was like, "Oh, Ksantikara, or I wasn't called Ksantikara then. I can see why, it's sort of like, I can see why you like this Buddha chap. I see why you keep talking about suffering. I thought that was a bit weird, but I kind of get it now. I'm paraphrasing if you're listening. And then by the 4th or 5th week, I think it was the week around the 5 precepts, she stopped calling me. Yeah, she was calling me on the drive home. She stopped calling me, and then a few weeks later I said, oh, did you stop doing that course? And I don't think this is what she said, but she basically, the vibe I think was, yes, but that was the point where it became about me. I was interested in the precepts. And the reason she was interested, she said something like what lots of people say, oh, those 5 ethical precepts, I recognized them. They made sense to me. It was like, she didn't say this line, it was like a golden net. That fitted together perfectly, and finding that out for myself was beautiful, irresistible. You didn't say that. But do you see what I mean? It's like when you start to see it for yourself, that it can fit together, that it's weaved together, that it's a net, it's a kind of pattern, a web. It can have this sense of Shraddha. Shraddha, we often translate that as confidence, trust, or faith. It's this sense of, it all fits together like a golden net. And many of you have had that thought. In an interview in 2016, I imagine marking the 40th anniversary of these talks, Sadhanandi is interviewing Bhante, and in that interview they end up also talking about, just like a net, the Buddha's teaching doesn't work if you start chopping it up and be like, oh yeah, I like that bit. Oh, I'll have a bit of that. I like that kindness stuff, but I'm not sure about that wisdom, and I'm not sure about being generous. I like being wise, yeah. But then you just end up with a net with loads of holes in it, is the image they start talking about, and it doesn't work anymore. You can't sort of pick and choose, it's a net, it sort of fits together. Okay, so my second gift is a golden net. Can you recognize it? So something of recognition. Can you see it? Are you open? Have you investigated the net enough? Can you feel it? Okay, my third gift is a shepherd's round dance. So the Dharma life, the Buddhist life, is not a solo venture as much as it might look like if you typed it into Google Images. Like on Google Images you get mainly blokes, mainly without hair, sat around in robes. But it's not like that, it's not a solo venture. It can look like that to us. We do it together. The Dharma life, the Buddhist life is, it has to be passed on person to person at the very least. It lives between us. Sort of lives between us a bit like an atmosphere or a vibe. I'm worried that my Sure and I say vibe too often. Like a vibe, a flavour, a sort of different kind of order of consciousness. It sort of exists between us. It's dynamic, it's joyous, and it can feel like a dance that we have to learn. So dances are done together, they're communal, and that's particularly true of a shepherd's round dance. Now I grew up going to something called dance camp in Tuttington. Sort of explains a lot. I don't do much dancing now, but that sort of alternative hippie vibe is important to me. So I did circle dancing. I've done circle dancing. I don't know if it's a shepherd's round dance, but I've done round dances. And in shepherd's round dances, people come and people go. Some people know the steps, some people don't. You can learn by dancing with someone who knows the steps more than you, but you can also learn by dancing with someone who knows the steps less than you. And you can sort of just join in. It can look a bit kind of complicated, like you don't know what's going on, but then you sort of join in and it's fine. Enjoyable, fun. I always have this at the moment when I'm of that sort of age where quite a lot of my friends are getting married, and whenever it says there'll be a Kaylee, I'm like, oh good. I prefer that to like the YMCA or the Macarena. A sort of dance you can join in with, someone can sort of teach it to you, and you have this kind of communal, ecstatic, dynamic kind of atmosphere. So I think that's what's being got at with this third gift of the shepherd's round dance. Equating to the talk a nucleus for a new society. In a spiritual community, in a sangha, people also come and go, like in a shepherd's round dance. Spiritual friendship, Buddhist friendship, dharmic connection and friendship is both between two individuals, like in a dance, but it's also more than that, like in a round dance. It's more than the sum of its parts. It's about you and it's not about you. And then there's this line, do your feet know how to dance? Sounds pretty tantric. Don't have anything else to say about that. My fourth gift is a garden planted in the wilderness. Take one look at the world and you'll see that it's a wilderness, a wild place, dangerous. In the Buddhist tradition, the domain of Mara. Mara is this sort of demonic figure that personifies everything that holds you back from growing, from becoming more generous, more truthful, etc. The wilderness. Meanwhile, a garden is cultivated, it's luscious. It has flowers in bloom. It's a stark contrast, wilderness and a garden, but it's even more stark because they're not separate. It's not saying there's a garden over here and a wilderness over there and that's my gift. There's a garden planted in the wilderness. It's been planted, there's still mainly wilderness. The garden needs gardeners. The garden needs gardeners. The garden needs people not just to enjoy the flowers, to sit under the shade, to lap up the oasis, but to help build it, to cultivate it, to become gardeners, planting seeds, cutting back the weeds, extending the garden into new bits of wilderness. So I think this is why the next line is, could you work there? Can you join in? Can you make that shift from consumer to contributor? In the early years of Triratna in our Buddhist tradition, when someone became a mitra, there was a fourth declaration. So there's, like now, when you become a mitra, you can do that here at the North London Buddhist Centre if you'd like to, you're saying three things. You're saying you're a Buddhist, you wish to practice the 5 precepts, and you want to do it here in this community, and then you become a mitra, sort of means friend. In the earlier days, there was then a fourth. You were saying, I'm a Buddhist, I wish to practice the 5 precepts. I wish to do so here in Triratna, and I'll help out. I'll participate. I'll give. I don't know why that was rubbed out. But I was thinking maybe one way to think of this year-long exploration is we could pretend that 4th declaration still exists. So if you are a mitra or an order member, pick that up as a sort of mock declaration for this year, to help out, to give, to get stuck in, give what you can, give all that you can. And then, if you're not a mitra, not an order member, a bit newer, I thought I'd let you know that in this bit I was mainly talking to them, sort of geeing up the mitras and order members for the year ahead. There's nothing wrong with coming to enjoy the flowers, to sit under the shade, to lap up the oasis. Everyone is very welcome to just pop into the North London Buddhist Centre. But I thought I'd also say that the metaphor of a gardener doesn't have to be that big a deal. You can be part of gardening here, metaphorically, just by being friendly, or washing up your mug, or just talking to someone you wouldn't usually talk to. Do you know what I mean? It's just that on that level you can join in kind of cultivating this garden. Okay, so I've got about a minute left, which is all right, because I've come to the last line. I come to you with 4 gifts, dare you accept them? So I think these 4 gifts have not gone out of date. The original lecture series is called Buddhism for Today and Tomorrow, but it's given 50 years ago, so I think tomorrow is now tomorrow. A few other people I've been talking to about this talk and the fact that lots of us are marking it this year as the classic, renaming it as Buddhism for Today and Tomorrow. And today, and tomorrow. It was alive in 1976, it's alive in 2026, and no doubt far into the future, if some of us keep it alive. I like the dare you accept them at the end. All right. Dynamic, perhaps of interest to some of you, certainly to me, but they're challenging, disruptive even. Accepting them means you're taking responsibility for your life and your personal development. You're going to grow as if you've been caught in a golden net of vision. You're going to learn the steps to a strange dance that you don't currently know, but you've got this sense that you might like to be part of. And you're going to bravely plant seeds in an almost hopeless wilderness. So I think that's why it's dare you accept them. Who knows what could happen in 2026 if you decide to accept these gifts or make something of them. A method of personal development, a vision of human existence, the nucleus of a new society, a blueprint for a new world. Yeah, great themes, massive themes for us to explore throughout 2026. I come to you with 4 gifts. The first gift is a lotus flower. Do you understand? My second gift is a golden net. Can you recognize it? My third gift is a shepherd's round dance. Do your feet know how to dance? My fourth gift is a garden planted in a wilderness. Could you work there? I come to you with 4 gifts. Dare you accept them?